Hi, my name is Shaun Kardinal. I'm a visual artist. I've been working with embroidery and weaving on found paper ephemera for about 12 years, among other practices. And my practice, in addition to being just kind of a meditative one in the studio, is also kind of getting into what I'm thinking about while I'm making the pieces. The main drive for this work in this show was to really showcase noise. That was the kind of baseline for every piece, was to make it noisier. So either the images are juxtaposed in the weaving in a way that I haven't done before, that tries to create something that's a little harder to look at, or create a kind of lenticular moment when you pass by this noisy thread. It was really attempting to get you to look deeper into the noisier part and not look away from it, so to speak, to really look right into that noise and lean into it, where before everything was much cleaner. It's also, I think, the most technically challenging work that I've made. It's the most exacting in its details, but it also is attempting to just carry more inside of it, I suppose, than it was before. So I continued this practice and kind of incorporated a lifelong love of sacred geometry. And over time, that practice, which was for a long time just an aesthetic one, I started to find these connective points that also kind of spoke to what I was thinking about in the studio, and finding the marriage of a few different ideas. And over time, I also wanted to grow the practice in a physical sense. I did about 300 of those embroidered postcards over the years, and I still do them. But really taking the practice into bigger works has been a good challenge to figure out how to do that, and to make different shapes with a straight line has also been an ongoing challenge. Finding ways to just refine this practice over the years, it's always kept my attention in a way that no other media really has. So most of the images that I'm using are coming from photo books from the 80s and the 90s, 11 by 14, just like aerial photos of places around America generally. There's often just a sort of instinctive connection with choosing the image. In these more recent works, there's an attempt to include less idyllic moments and more scenes showing natural destruction and decay, and trying to introduce less like beatific aesthetic and more noise. But still, the colors are always chosen based on an attempt to kind of incorporate both the foreground and the background of these images. So hoping that a selection of color will also pull out a detail from the image that you might not notice otherwise. In addition to the embroidery and the weaving, I've also started to incorporate this practice of kind of bleaching the pieces in the sun over the course of a few months. So I make a mask and place it over the found image and put it up in my studio for a number of days. In this case, all of them were 108 days. And then what comes out are these, altered, sun-drenched kind of different moments that I would not be able to make myself I never really know what's going to come out. I'm getting a better handle on what comes out, but it's still a surprise for me. But the really beautiful part of that is that there's this temporal extension. So the piece, as this two-dimensional plane, also contains this four-dimensional length kind of built right into it. And that was an idea that came when I was living out on the East Coast, and we have a lot more sun out there than we do in Seattle. And I was noticing the benefit to my mental health. And I had this kind of aha moment that I could try to imbue the same sun like warmth into the piece, which ironically creates cooler tones. So there are 6 pieces in the show that try to also convey a sense of that light and its direction, in addition to providing what I hope feels sort of like, the seer, the universal eye, and what any given moment in time and space is experiencing, this endless zooming in and out of the actual, space-time itself, and also incorporating time into that moment. So I'm hoping when you look at these pieces, you're seeing a kind of back and forth of a moment in addition to the image that's there. In the last show, in 2020, it was the first time I tried to make a text piece and tried to create a little bit of depth with the two-dimensional plane and try to marry those ideas a little bit. And creating that alphabet was a really fun challenge. When I had the opportunity to make another one, I really wanted to push that third dimension into that plane, in hopes that the phrase that I'm introducing also creates a kind of juxtaposed idea where you're seeing take care as both a goodbye and a well-wishing, something that you say that has a lot of meaning. And this new piece also, in hopes, pushes that even further, where there are 2 central ideas you can take away from it that are both true and opposite. I'm hoping that it'll allow the viewer to take the piece in a few different ways.